So it's my pleasure to have you with us today, Tom. Tom Sherwood has been our minister back when I first arrived at
Yes,
OUC.
and we did a lot of things together, David.
I'd just like to get a little bit of where you've been. We haven't seen you for a while. You're
Sure.
now here at Carleton University, and give us a little bit of what you're doing there now.
Well, actually, I was at Carleton when Orleans United called me to become a minister in 1984, and was finishing up my PhD. And I've been teaching at Carleton on a part-time basis, actually since 1982, but always part-time with a full-time ministry job. Now, as you know, in 1999, I left Orleans United, and that was pretty emotional because we were really bonded together. And I served for 10 years as the Carleton University Ecumenical Chaplain, which was a full-time appointment. And then the United Church asked me to take on this research project, which has eventually now been published in the book. And it was a familiar phenomenon, even out in Orleans in the 90s, for people to say they were spiritual but not religious.
Mm-hmm.
But the people I met back then were engaged in church life, and I suppose they were liberal or progressive Christians and kind of sorted out that which they did believe and the part of tradition that they didn't want to continue. Well, my experience with the SBNR people, spiritual but not religious, just intensified in the university days, of course. And every week a student would come in, a different student every week I should say, and say, I'm not really religious, but I am spiritual. And they tell me about their life. And I realized, and a lot of other church leaders realized, that there was this large cohort of people, we didn't know how many or what percentages or whatever, who might have associated themselves with United Church congregations and ministries in earlier times, but were not. They were rejecting the institution, maybe without knowing it very well. And so in 2009, the United Church asked me to investigate as well as I could, getting young adults to talk about how they saw the church and the world and society and important issues like the environmental crisis, that sort of thing. So that maybe we church leaders and congregations and youth groups and parents and grandparents could understand a little better what's going on. And maybe we can make some connections. And that's all issued in all sorts of conference presentations the last few years. I was the theme speaker at M&O conference a few years ago,
Yes.
and I remember you were running the camera, I think, weren't you? Anyway, the United Church decided that there was a book in it, and they asked me to write it, and they've published it. Now, Orleans United is getting a little bit of a preview. The book launch is Thursday, February 2nd at Carleton University. It's a public lecture. The university is arranging this, but Sunday, January 15th at Orleans United, it's also the focus of our worship. I'll talk a little bit about the research, a little bit about the phenomenon, and a little bit about the hope in terms of how parents and grandparents and congregations and ministries can connect with this rich, diverse spirituality and creative energy that is missing from church life to a great extent right now.
It almost seems, and I had a chance to read your book. The book is called Listening to the Echo.
Yeah, referring to the echo generation, the children of baby boomers,
right.
The echo from the boom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you before that I kind of identified with some of what was going on in there.
You identify yourself, even though you and I are of
yes,
the... Yes,
exactly.
And I do too.
Yeah.
I think obviously we're religious, we go to church, I'm an ordained minister, but that doesn't mean we're not spiritual. And we both have a theology of the Holy Spirit that's an unfolding new reality all the time. The young adults I interviewed and that are quoted in the book, they generally have an impression of the church as being past rather than present or future. And historic and monolithic and not creative and innovative and energetic. some of us in the United Church would like to say, but, what about what we're doing?
Well, and this is I got that impression when I read that particular section where you had discussed with those who identified as having come from the United Church and who were both in some ways appreciative of that
The formation.
history, but yet very critical of what we are today.
Dave, you read with interest the chapter that I wrote based on what people had told me who had grown up in the United Church.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a difficult chapter to write in some respects because I'm so close to it. But they appreciate the ethical formation and they appreciate the community.
Mm-hmm.
But they still reject the institutional life, the committee system, the having to learn church as a second language, narthex, presbytery. What's with that? What's a JNAC? Like, don't ask me to join a committee. But it's a positive and hopeful chapter also, in a sense, because these young adults have internalized the ethical and spiritual formation of the United Church. It's just that they don't want to express it in 20th century institutional organizations. I think there's some potential there. And I think maybe some congregations and some ministries that are not congregations, that are either arts-based or service-based, like Faith and Arts Ottawa or Centre 507 or an Out of the Cold Supper program or a refugee sponsorship program, that these kind of ministries can connect with this echo generation.
So what's your message to the established church? How can we bridge this disconnect between these wonderful young people and their drive, social
Energy
drive,
and creativity?
Is there ways that we can bridge that gap? Hopefully you'll tell a little bit of this to us on Sunday.
Yes, I'm still working on that. I think there's sort of a part two. I'm preparing for Rendezvous 2017 in Montreal this August, and I'll be doing a workshop on that, using the book as a resource. What I would say to congregational leaders is keep on doing what you're doing to some extent. I mean, we need congregations. Baby boomers need congregations. We need love too. But don't think that that's all of the ministry. And try to imagine ministry in addition to that.
Right.
And we have to close a few congregations and rationalize our use of resources and energy. That's not failure. We built our churches where the people were, and if we were a school board, we'd be closing some schools and opening others, and if we're the United Church of Canada, we're going to close some congregations and open some other ministries. When I was nominated for moderator in 2012, one of the things I said to the General Council and the church is that I have a vision of the future with fewer congregations but more ministries.
Yes.
And I still have that vision. So, if you're a congregational leader, keep on doing what you're doing, but ask what more you can do and how you can support alternatives. And don't feel like failure if attendance on a Sunday morning goes down some or there is the missing generation. But ask yourself how you can connect. And what we're finding is that ministries that are alternatives to Sunday morning, that don't use a set liturgy, that aren't in the sanctuary, that don't use a hymn book, and that don't have sermons, that they are connecting points. The experience of community and the experience of doing something meaningful can make the difference and will create new faith communities. So how does that happen? Well, some congregations sponsor mission trips, mission education trips, partner with communities in the First Nations or in Latin America, something like that, and they invite their young people to have an experience. First an experience, then with it the experience of community, and then conversation about belief. See, we're really standing on its head the church tradition of first you have to take confirmation class and sign your name to a set of beliefs and conform, and then you get your membership certificate, and then you can participate. With this generation, an invitation into participation can lead to participation in the community and spiritual growth. And where is that happening? The alternative spring break or mission education or mission trip, the out of the cold suppers, the Center 507 volunteers, refugee sponsorship groups, the arts-based ministries, the yoga church in Vancouver is booming. Faith and Arts Ottawa in Ottawa with its theater program. These are connections. And let's talk about Ottawa. Faith and Arts Ottawa is a flourishing ministry that doesn't have a building, doesn't have any staff, it doesn't have any Sunday morning worship, but it has people. And congregations can support it. For example, several United Church congregations have provided free space for the theater group to rehearse. And I think I'll name some of the congregations that are supporting Faith and Arts Ottawa just because they've got the buildings, and the buildings perhaps aren't overly used. Downtown churches are really useful for reaching this population because they're renting and going to school and starting their careers. So Southminster and Centretown, actually Rideau Park as well though, and Glebe St. James and Dominion Chalmers have all given, and St. Paul's Eastern, have all given really good support to Faith and Arts Ottawa. And we have a faith community. It's not a worshiping congregation exactly, although sometimes the Faith and Arts Ottawa young adults do get together and they say it's their church. So there's hope. There's hope. And Orleans United, I think, has the people and the creativity. I'm just not sure if you have the location. Right. I think there might be an East End development that Orleans United could be really, really importantly a part of. But maybe we'll talk about that on January the 15th and in some follow-up conversations that we're going to have.
And I can hardly wait for part 2. That
sounds
really cool. So Tom, thank you very much for being with us today, and I really appreciate you spending some time to talk to us. And so if you want to find out more information, Tom, I hope you won't mind if we can put your email address up on the... tom.sherwood@carleton.ca. It's pretty intuitive, yeah. Yeah, and if you have any comments about this program, or if you have other suggestions for programs, which, by the way, I've got quite a few from you, I really appreciate it, just get in touch with me at the credits that will follow this video. Thanks very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Tom. Thank you, Dave.